Welcome in. What an ending to that Monday night game between Atlanta and Philadelphia. I'm sure there will be a lot of Tuesday morning quarterbacking there on Nick Sirianni and the Eagles essentially giving that game away. That one feels like it's going to be several days of intense scrutiny, especially in the Philadelphia area. I can promise you that there will be no shortage of opinions from the Philly faithful. As far as the recap goes, same format here for the weeks 1 and 2 as we did with the AFC. Going to start with the NFC North and work around the conference. Go north, east, south, and west. Start with the Bears. You have to let Caleb Williams work. You drafted him number 1 overall. And I feel like it's almost like they're calling limited plays. Like they're not, like the full playbook isn't open. But the offensive line has looked extremely suspect through the first couple of weeks. They have to give him time. I don't know if that maybe plays into some of the, conservative or less than full playbook opening up as far as what it feels like so far. But yeah, that line looks not good. They got to get that on track. Roma Dunze has been quiet so far. Really haven't seen him targeted or involved in the offense much. And going back to week 1, it felt like Keenan Allen was their guy. Now, he did not play in week 2, but as I just mentioned, Odunze really not a factor here through the first couple weeks. And DJ Moore, he could argue, their offense last year. The idea that, he has been basically non-existent this season is, something that they've got to get corrected quickly. But pathetic offensive performance against the Texans. That was a bad running back rotation. I didn't understand what the Bears were doing with Swift and Khalil Herbert. It felt like, even though Swift is the more dynamic, explosive kind of pass catcher of those guys, it felt like they were being very intentional about putting Herbert in on third downs, which I didn't get. It almost felt like he was in on 90% of the third downs, and he was, he's not a difference maker. I know he got the touchdown, but yeah, I'd look for, maybe some things to change there in terms of, number of snaps and who is on the field and when. The defense continued to play well. They were good in week 1. I thought they were considering, they were going up against the Texans and CJ Stroud. I thought they played well on Sunday night. I don't think this Bears team is quite the 2023 Jets where you have a superb defense and just garbage quarterback play. I do think Williams will get this thing corrected, but they really need to pick it up offensively, especially that offensive line. The Vikings, Sam Darnold looks good, right? Now, the Giants was one thing. You go out there and you win that week 1 opener. We know they're not going to be good, but I thought he really showed something against the 49ers. Now, it's still early. We're only 2 games in. But in terms of value, that's about as good as it gets. They paid something like $10 million to bring Sam Darnold in, and he is, to say the least, paying off so far. The defense is playing really well. I thought they were impressive against the Niners. Even though they did not have Christian McCaffrey, I thought that was still a pretty good showing against an offense that, can beat you with a multitude of players. Justin Jefferson, we saw him go out. He says his injury is not serious. We'll have to monitor that as the week goes on. Aaron Jones, how did he have a fumble down at the goal line? That was about the low point of the game for them. I still think Aaron Jones is a dynamic addition to their offense, and he is going to make a huge difference this year. Packers, to put it lightly, the offense was putrid against the Colts. They have no chance at the postseason if Jordan Love misses significant time. Now, he's not on IR, so that's some good news. We'll see if he's available for week 3. But if Jordan Love does not play in this next game, they need to have a better offensive game plan with Malik Willis. I was surprised that given essentially a week of prep where LaFleur knew that Jordan Love was not going to play, that he could not scheme something better for Malik Willis. Let's see if that changes when they go into Tennessee in week 3. Again, we'll have to see if Love is going to be active, but if not, I can't think they're going to go in there with the same strategy that they did against the Colts. Josh Jacobs, so far through 2 weeks, he's still a workhorse back. We'll see what kind of carry or snap count he has going into week 3. But if he's out there and healthy, all indications are that guy is touching the ball 25 plus times. I think the Packers need to get the running backs more involved in the passing game. If you are going to come out here with an abbreviated version of your playbook and just not let Malik Willis throw the ball down the field, you have to get the running backs involved in the passing game. I thought that was a big miss against the Colts. The Lions, this team brings maximum effort every week. And then that's a credit to Dan Campbell. There is no argument about it. Those guys play really, really hard for Dan Campbell. Whatever he's saying, during the week in practice or pregame or at halftime, those guys are playing inspired football. Tough loss to Tampa on Sunday, but I think there were a lot of things from that game that can be cleaned up. I cannot overlook the poor clock management, though, especially at the end of the first half and then the end of the game. Jared Goff, you're a veteran. You just got paid. What was that? Those final 2 drives, I don't have any words. If you watch those last 2 Lions drives, you know exactly what I'm talking about. The throwing underneath, throwing short of the sticks on 4th down, especially on that final drive where I don't even know who the NPC was that he threw the ball to on I think it was 4th down. But even if the guy catches that, the game is over. They don't have any timeouts left. It's in the middle of the field. I do not understand what the strategy was there, or certainly the decision making from Jared Goff. Switch over to the NFC East. The Giants, no surprise through the first couple of weeks. They are pathetic on offense. And, we'll see how the rest of the season plays out, but I would not assume that Dable is safe here. I don't think Shane is safe either, for that matter. Now in week 2, the Malik Neighbors targets were insane. I don't remember what the percentage of the total targets was, but I want to say he had something like 17 or 18 total targets. And look, I know he's your first round pick. He certainly appears to be a great young player, but to try to force the ball to him that many times, to me, it didn't feel like, hey, we're going to utilize our best offensive weapon. It felt more like desperation. Like, this guy's all we got, and they know it's coming. We know that they know it's coming, but we're going to force it over to him anyway. So I just think they need to be more balanced on offense. Daniel Jones is bad. His only value really seems to be his mobility or his ability to run, maybe pick up some first downs when things break down. But yeah, that in terms of contract value, we've already talked about that on previous episodes, but not looking any better than last year, certainly. I think Devin Singletary was a decent free agent pickup, but let's be honest, he is no Saquon Barkley, not even close. And that defense, the defense is bad. What else is there to say? Now, I don't think this is going to be a situation where, the Giants defense protects a garbage offense. I think the Giants defense has plenty of holes as is. So even though that offense looks like it's going to struggle all year, I certainly would not look to the defense as any kind of value add or keeping them in games that they maybe otherwise do not belong in. As far as the Commanders, who they played against on Sunday, I do think there's some promise. Jaden Daniels definitely brings excitement. You know, if you are a Commanders fan, you watch these first couple weeks, and, you know, while it hasn't been pretty, I think Jaden Daniels just gives you hope, right? He shows flashes. You know, he is able to extend plays. He's athletic. You got to feel a lot better than you have for, you know, probably since that rookie year of RG3 in terms of your quarterback situation. As far as the play calling, what was that? Is there something on the play sheet, right? Or is there something scribbled there on the laminated, game plan or personnel packaging that says, okay, when we get to the red area, make sure Jaden Daniels does not pass the ball? It felt like every time they were in the red zone, it was some sort of RPO. It was a handoff to Eckler. It was a handoff to Brian Robinson, or some kind of short screen to one of those guys. But I did not see any, and maybe I'm wrong, and I'm just forgetting some of these plays, but I did not see Jaden Daniels. It felt like he was just not allowed to throw the ball down the field or into the end zone. So I don't know what's going on there, but open it up a little bit if you are Washington. And then I just think Terry McLaurin needs to get the ball more, and he needs to get the ball down the field. He had 8 targets on Sunday, ultimately had 6 catches for a total of 22 yards. And here's the most interesting factor of that 22 yards. He had a long of a 12-yard reception. So basically he had 5 catches for 12 yards, 5 catches for 10 yards other than that 12-yard reception he had. They got to scheme him open. I mean, he's too good of a player, too dynamic to, have him bottled up. And I'd like to see Washington just be a little bit more trusting of the young quarterback there. The only way you're going to learn is to, let this guy cook. Austin Eckler averaged more yards per rush than McLaurin did per reception. Eckler on Sunday had 4.8 yards per carry. McLaurin had 3.7 yards per catch. That should put it in perspective. The Cowboys, I thought their defense was great in week 1 against Cleveland, but then they were atrocious at home against the Saints. That's now 2 straight games at home where they've been embarrassed. They had no answers for the Packers in the playoff game last year, and the Saints just destroyed them this year in their home opener. I think Ezekiel Elliott seems to be more involved in the offense than we were led to believe when he re-signed to come back to Dallas. So we'll see how that looks as the season goes on. CeeDee Lamb had a big play in the first half of the Saints game. I thought that really gave them a jolt. But otherwise, he was quiet. Only had 7 targets on the day. I think, even going back to the Cleveland game, they need to get CD's target share up. I mean, they're paying him a ton of money. He's been nothing but productive his entire time in the league. They need to figure out ways to get CeeDee Lamb the ball. It is, I think, even including Dak Prescott, it is easy to say that CeeDee Lamb is their best offensive player. Sunday, we'll call it an overall anomaly for Dallas. I do think for the rest of the season that their defense will be better. I think Dak will be better. I still like them to win the division. Switch over to the Eagles. The offense looked really good against Green Bay in Brazil in week 1. And, Saquon Barkley, he might be the best, what's the phrasing I want to use here? He might be the best free agent acquisition while also simultaneously being the worst let a guy walk free agent decision in league history. I mean, the Giants to just let him go, and then the Eagles, Howie, it's like, come on. Howie's not going to pass that up, and he's been great for them through the first couple weeks. I was surprised as far as Monday night that, when you're without A.J. Brown, you need to get Jahan Dotson and Goddard way more involved in the offense. I just thought that, I thought that would happen once we heard that A.J. Brown was not going to play. But a little surprising to see, those guys not get the ball more. I thought the defense got worked by the Atlanta offensive line. Bijan ran all over them the entire evening. And then on that final drive, what was Vic Fangio doing? He got no pressure on Kirk Cousins. You cannot decide that you're going to sell out to guard against a big play and play deep, play this prevent defense, and then still give up the big play. I thought, as far as last night went, in terms of the, three things, I should say, three concepts are possible here. One, the Eagles had the right play dialed up on the Saquon screen in the flat. Schematically, right? That was going to get them the first down and ice the game. Now, second, Barkley needs to catch that ball. He said it as much himself. And third, Sirianni needs to trust the math in that situation. To go for I understand the play was open, and again, just as I mentioned, it certainly seemed to be the right call, but you have to get the yards there. You're running the ball successfully on that drive. Even if you don't get the first down, maybe you get a little bit closer to the line to gain to where you go, well, maybe we go for that tush push. And even if that wasn't the case, and ultimately say, all right, third down running play, we don't get it, we're going to take the 3. So many things there, right? And I don't want to harp on it, but I just think, that I'm hearing a bunch of stuff about, he should have did this, they should have did that, here's why they lost. I think, again, all three things can, be present at once there. But the defense, even after all that, you go up 6, the Falcons have no timeout. Yes, they had more time than they should have had or would have had if you just run the ball there and kick the field goal, and maybe they get the ball back with 50 to 55 seconds. But there's no way around it. The defense got scorched on that last drive, and basically, we're only 2 weeks in, but the Eagles lost a game they should have won. NFC South. The Falcons were my pick to win the division. I think the first 2 weeks of what we've seen from the Saints and Bucks has been surprising. It's certainly opened my eyes. I still like Atlanta to ultimately win the division when 2024 is all said and done. But I think they showed some resolve on Monday night in Philly. Say what you want. They won that road game. Now, they should not have lost to the Steelers, and maybe they make it up in the weeks to come here, or maybe the Monday night game, was the makeup. I just think when an offense comes in as bad as the Steelers and they come into your place, you have to figure out how to win that game. I know the Steelers are really tough on defense, but you can't drop that if you're Atlanta. Look how close they were to going 0-2. So we'll see if that game against Philly gives them any momentum here. Going to have a big one next week against the Chiefs. I think the defense is going to keep them in a lot of games. That's obviously Raheem Morris. That's his side of the football. So I like the Falcons to play much better defensively than we saw a year ago. I think they have a good offensive line. The skill players, obviously, ton of potential there. And until otherwise, I still think Atlanta is good for 11 wins. Buccaneers, Baker looks really good. He looks to be in great shape. He's moving around well. I think the defense looks really good. That was a huge win in Detroit. That is a loaded Lions offense, and they kept them in check. Chris Godwin is off to a great start. Now, I think they need to get the running game going. It almost felt like that was abandoned a little bit there in Detroit. So kind of surprising, if you would have said Tampa's going to get nothing going on the ground, but they're going to come away with the win in Detroit, I would have said slim chances. But, nonetheless, here we are. And the offensive line, look, Aiden Hutchinson is really, really good. You cannot let him dominate like that. You cannot, under any circumstances, I don't care if it's Hutchinson, if it's TJ Watt, whatever elite player, you want to insert, you cannot let him just wreak havoc like that and sack your quarterback. I want to say, I thought I saw he had 5 sacks at a certain point, but I think officially it was 4.5. But, either way, you cannot let one guy just completely disrupt the offense like that. The Saints, obviously, just crushed the Cowboys. That was really impressive. But, what a start for their offense. I think I heard 15 straight scoring drives to start the season. Derek Carr is playing out of his mind. He looks a lot like that year, way back in Oakland when he was having a potential MVP type of season. Unfortunately, he ultimately broke his leg. I want to say that was the year that Connor Cook started the playoff game. But this Saints offense, I truly think this is the best offense that Derek Carr has had. Kamara is still, he's in his 8th season, but he's still playing some big-time football. And then you look at, Olave, Rashid Shaheed, Juwan Johnson, Taysom Hill. They have some really dynamic players on this offense. So, I'm excited to see what the Saints can do, but I will say I'm very surprised that they have been this explosive through the first 2 games this year. The defense, I think we would have assumed that was going to be their strength this season. They've looked awesome through 2 weeks. Expected that, but did not see this offense being quite what they've shown through weeks 1 and 2. And then the Panthers, they're just dreadful. Really, I don't have any real positives to take from the first 2 weeks. The roster stinks. David Tepper stinks. We did see this morning Dalton was named the starter, at least for week 3. We'll see if they look any different, if that brings any kind of different energy. But, yeah, not looking good for the Panthers. And I saw Ari Marov posted some insane stat that I think I'm summarizing this correctly from what I saw earlier, but he said something like the cumulative result of trading their star players, Christian McCaffrey, DJ Moore, Brian Burns, right? All those guys have been traded over the past couple of years. It has somehow resulted in a lesser amount of first-round picks coming back to them. And all 3 guys were 26 years or 26 years old or younger at the time. And just to pile on, just want to throw this in there, Sam Darnold and Baker Mayfield are 2-0 to start the season. So Panthers legends, Mayfield and Darnold, again, 2-0 to start their 2024 seasons. Move out to the West. The 49ers, there's just something about Minnesota that, for whatever reason, doesn't seem to work for the Niners and Brock Purdy. This is 2 years in a row now where they go into Minnesota and lose. Jordan Mason, another good game on the ground, had 100 yards and a touchdown. Fred Warner, he showed you why he's arguably the best linebacker in the entire league. That defense smothered the Jets, and the offense ran wild in that one. That was a really impressive showing by the 49ers in the opener. That was not at all the case against Minnesota. Sam Darnold just worked them. I did not see that coming, but I got to give the guy credit. And the 97-yard Justin Jefferson touchdown was not 49ers like. For them to give up that explosive play there, that it felt like the game changed on that play. I know it was still early. I think it was still in the first half when he scored that one, but it almost felt like from that point on, the 49ers just were not going to win that game. Now, they've got the Rams MASH unit up next week, so we'll see if they can get things back on track. And speaking of the Rams, less than ideal start to the season for them. I thought they were very competitive in week 1 in Detroit, but they got absolutely crushed on Sunday in Arizona. And now they have no Puka or Cup. Just a disaster scenario for them. Kind of feels like 2022 when they went from coming off of the Super Bowl championship to injured and ultimately finishing 5-12. Now, I think this team is better than that, but 0-2 with the 49ers coming in could be getting late early there in Los Angeles. For the Seahawks, I give them a lot of credit. 2-0 start to the season. Now, it was against, two of the more offensively challenged teams in Denver and New England, but hey, in the NFL, 2-0 is 2-0. Their ground game looks good. Geno looks good. Let's see what Mike McDonald can do. He's a young coach. He came in with a lot of accolades as one of the best defensive minds in the league. If he can get that defense into a top 10 unit for the 2024 season, I think Seattle is going to surprise some people. Cardinals, I think Jonathan Gannon was the right hire. Kyler's looked good so far this year. Even in Buffalo, he didn't have the best statistical game, but he just seems to be back to the guy that we all thought he would be and ultimately the guy that the Cardinals are paying him to be. Coming into week 2, I thought they needed to get Marvin Harrison Jr. more involved, and they absolutely did that. They were very intentional about getting him the ball early. He made some explosive plays. They just dominated the Rams. They can obviously run the ball, and I think that's going to be pivotal. I think that's going to be pivotal to their offensive rhythm going forward. Kyler Murray is obviously dynamic. He can extend plays. He can make things happen with his legs. But I think he is at his best, and we really haven't seen it during his time with Arizona, that they have had any kind of reliable rushing attack. And if Connor is able to keep this up, I think the Cardinals' offense is going to be something impressive. Just overall, nice bounce-back win in week 2, and we'll see where they come in the rest of the way. Thank you all for listening.